Hello, everybody. This is Joe Crawl. I am the president of the Society of St. Sebastian, and welcome to this week's weekly update. This is a new thing that we're doing at the Society. I hope you enjoy it. Basically, the gist of it is we want to update you, the average pro-life advocate, on what's going on pro-life public policy, what's going on pro-life legislation, kind of give you a little bit better insight into what's going on so you can be a better advocate yourself. And so you can go out and actually talk to people in a more intelligent manner about various pro-life initiatives that are going on out there in either the legislature or the courts. This week, we're going to talk a little bit about the principle of incrementalism, what it is, what are the moral foundations, and we'll also be talking about the Title X funding issue that we've seen this week. A great victory for us. The Protect Life rule went into effect, and Planned Parenthood has opted out from accepting those federal funds. Huge victory. Means a lot of things. Let's first get into the idea of the principle of incrementalism. The principle of incrementalism is something that the pro-life movement as a whole has been employing for quite some time. And the idea is that basically we're going to take a step-by-step approach at abolishing abortion. Now, let's talk about this real quick. One of the big reasons why we do this is that we know Roe v. Wade is not going to be overturned anytime soon. It's either going to have to come through a court case where the court either decides that it goes back to the states and then the individual states then abolish abortion, or the court could decide that abortion is contrary to the Constitution and then it outlaws it across the land, or through a human life amendment in which, again, an amendment is passed that states that abortion is illegal and that human life is protected within the womb. These are important things to understand when it comes to incrementalism. We are not going to be able to just abolish abortion this week, next month even. So the incremental method is something that's been employed for several decades now. And interestingly enough, when we look at the moral foundations of it, we can really kind of go back and look at what St. John Paul II had to say in his encyclical, The Gospel of Life, which was issued in 1995. It's been around for quite some time, 24 years now, about to go on 25 this January. Now, interestingly enough, he lays kind of the moral foundation of the principle of incrementalism by setting up a hypothetical, if you will. And in this hypothetical, what we see is he lays out this interesting question in which a legislator, well, what if there's a legislator who cannot completely overturn an existing evil law, but has the opportunity to limit the harm of the existing evil law? Would he be morally licit in doing so? And John Paul II answers yes, he would be. And this is basically what incrementalism is. We know that we cannot overturn Roe v. Wade. It just simply isn't going to happen. As I mentioned a while ago, the simple reality is that unless one of three things happens, it's not going to be overturned. And so we know that we can limit the harms of the existing evil law, which is Roe v. Wade, through various initiatives. And we know that Roe v. Wade has unleashed numerous harms within our society. And that's what John Paul is really pointing at, is that how are we limiting the harms? Well, let's just look at what some of the harms are right now when it comes to incrementalism. So, for example, when Roe v. Wade became the law of the land, it basically wiped any sort of law or regulation regarding abortion off the books. It was essentially a clean slate. People could get away with doing anything, and they did. In fact, the simple fact is minor girls could get abortions without their parents ever knowing. Women weren't given proper information on abortion risks or fetal development or abortion alternatives. Funding could happen. I mean, literally, we've been fighting the funding fight for decades now in various states and at the federal level. So now with Roe v. Wade as the law of the land, federal and state funding could happen. And so these are the various harms, and certainly these harms are not just limited to those situations. There are many more out there. But these are the sorts of harms that we look at limiting the various harms that Roe v. Wade has unleashed. And this is kind of an important sort of thing here. Now, John Paul is pretty specific about it. So, and he spells it out pretty clearly in his encyclical. So, for example, there's got to be an existing evil law, that which would be Roe v. Wade in our case, in our country. Secondly, it's got to limit the harm of the existing law. So, if you look at certain pieces of legislation like parental consent legislation, which would allow the parent to be both notified and and has to give consent to the abortion process. So now the parent is back involved in the decision with their minor daughter. That's one way in which we can limit the harm. And on top of that, John Paul II is very clear that he wants to try to move society away from a general acceptance of this evil law. And that's one of the aims of pro-life laws to begin with as well, is it slowly, bit by bit, helps to educate the public that abortion is an evil. If we can say abortion is an evil, say in the sense that, hey, look, girls getting abortions without their parents ever knowing is wrong. In some way, in some sense, we are saying that abortion is wrong. Certainly in that respect, but if we keep adding on these pro-life laws, we keep seeing that, more and more people begin to develop a sense that abortion itself is wrong. And this is how we try to aim eventually to get to the point to where we can pass either a human life amendment or we can have the U.S. Supreme Court actually either outlaw abortion or at least give it back to the states so the states can outlaw abortion on a state-by-state basis. So important facts here. Right? Now, with respect to the Title X funding, again, we can see a little bit that's going on here. Like I mentioned a moment ago, the simple truth is with Roe v. Wade, it now opened the door to federal and state funding. Now, in the case of Title X, that's federal funding. And so we need to take a good, close look at this and understand that in one way it limits the harm insofar as the Protect Life rule prohibits these Title X funds from being used for abortion providers. And so in that sense, we're now saying abortion, federal funds from this part of the federal government, from the Title X funds, are no longer permissible to be used. And in that sense, it's saying abortion is not going to be a part of these funds. So again, it's sending that message to the public that, abortion is not a good. Secondly, we know, interestingly enough, that these types of laws do have an effect, not just in the sense that Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers are not getting the funds, but can have an effect in other ways as well. Now, while it's interesting to note that many political scientists, do various studies, they have noticed various correlations with the defunding of abortion providers and certain decreases within, abortion rates. So, interestingly enough, in 2011, Texas had defunded Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers. Now, it was interesting to notice that after that, we began to see a huge decline in the minor abortion rate. In fact, it dropped by 53%. Now, most political scientists aren't going to give you, this is what caused it. But I think philosophically we can look at it because it goes to the idea of law. And again, it stresses an important point. Philosophically, and especially if you believe in a system where there's an objective moral law, a universal moral law that we all have to follow, we certainly believe that law directs behavior. And simply put, when people begin to see under the law that abortion is bad, they're less likely to get it. So from a philosophical standpoint, we certainly see a causality, if you will. And I think this is going to be a tremendous moment for us in the nation, because now that we've been able to successfully get Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers at least defunded from the Title X funds, we know that this can go on and be effective in other ways. We still got a long way to go, but this certainly helps other states in their efforts to help defund abortion providers and Planned Parenthood alike. And it certainly helps in federal efforts as well. If we can get it defunded here, we can start really trying and pushing in other places as well. Well, I hope you like this edition of our weekly update. I appreciate you spending the time to watch this video. If you liked what you saw, give us a big thumbs up. Please share amongst your friends. We want to get the message out. Down below in the comments, I'm going to put a link to our donation page. Help us out. We want to spread the message. You get the opportunity to look and read from pro-life experts, pro-life lobbyists, pro-life academics that write about this issue in our journals and in our Sebastian's Point, which is a weekly publication. So, please become a part of the team. We appreciate you, and I hope you have a blessed weekend, and God bless. Have a good one. Bye.